Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Mike Meyer and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit today about our super rad new Panhard Rod kit. This is our Mod 1 Panhard Rod kit. We've made lots of Panhard Rod kits over the years, and a little known to everybody, our Panhard Rod kit was one of our very first products we created here at Mike Meyer Inc. And almost every one of our products in our product line has been updated over the last 8 years, except for our humble little Panhard Rod kit. We've learned a lot about manufacturing, we've learned a lot about our product, and it was just time to update our Panhard Rod kit. We could just make it better. Little things like the way our Panhard Rod kit fit around all the brackets, how the brackets fit on your frame rail, little fit and finish things. When we do exhaust work, we're really, I've done a lot of exhaust jobs myself. And once you put some of the tailpipes in with our old Panhard Rod kit design, the tailpipe would get stuck or captured on the driver's side. So we made the center support bolt in. So later on, if you want to pull tailpipes out or whatever, you have that latitude. It's just lots of little things about our Panhard Rod kit that have been improved. Just little things when you're manufacturing it day in and day out that you look at it and you're like, hey, this can be better. So here's our brand new Mod 1 Panhard Rod kit, and today we're going to be installing this on this little Cream Puff 65 coupe. We're really excited about it. This car, the thing that's special about this car, it's not a race car, it's a straight 6. The Panhard Rod kit is one of the things that it just helps the car drive clean. We have lots of little upgrades in our shop that just do that. When you're driving your car here to there, you're not racing it. It works very good racing too, but you just want the car to drive super clean. The Panhard Rod kit is one of those things. You don't know you've wanted it until you've used it. So the other great thing about this little 65 coupe is it is a cream puff. It's a survivor. The frame rails are super straight. It hasn't been beat on. So when we're gonna do this install video, sometimes you'll get a really neat looking car a guy brings in, but underneath it's like beat, So this car here is super cherry, it's super straight. It's a great representation of what a car should be underneath. That's why we chose this car to do the install. Plus, hey, it's a teenage kid. He's well deserved. He's trying, and who better to give a little kick down to than someone trying to get into the industry, trying to learn about cars, and we need to support that next generation. So here we go. A brand new MMI Panhard Rod kit for a cream puff little 65 coupe. Okay, so this is what you'll get in the Mike Meyer Inc. Panhard Rod kit, the Mod 1 Panhard Rod kit. The first thing you'll get, you'll get it all in a box all at one time. So probably one of the things you'll pull out will be the driver's side chassis bracket. This is where the Panhard Rod will go in. This is where the support goes, and these two holes are for a sway bar if you choose to do one later. It's just, we integrated it into the kit. You'll have the diagonal support bracket. This piece goes into the driver's side bracket, and this other end connects to the passenger side frame rail bracket. This has the two sway bar mounts, and then the two 5/16 bolt holes for the cross member. You'll also have the Panhard rod itself. It comes with the aluminum rod. It also has right and left hand threaded rod ends with jam nuts. You'll get two 5/8 bolt assemblies, one with thinner spacers and one with a little thicker spacers. The longer bolt with the thicker spacers goes on the wider side. It's what will connect the Panhard rod. And then the shorter bolt with the shorter spacers goes to our axle bracket. This replaces your leaf spring plate on the passenger side. It has the channel for receiving the actual Panhard rod, has your shock mount, has your thrust tabs in it, and your tow eyelet along with your sway bar mount here for the inlet. You also get two 5/16 bolts for the passenger side diagonal support bracket to the frame rail bracket, and you'll get one 7/16 bolt and washer assembly for the driver's side. So you've got two 5/8 bolts, two 5/16 bolt assemblies, one 7/16 bolt assembly, the diagonal support, the driver's side frame rail bracket, passenger side frame rail bracket, and the axle bracket, and then your aluminum Panhard rod assembly itself. The U-bolts do not come with this kit. We generally recommend you buy U-bolts if you haven't dealt with them in some time, because U-bolts aren't meant to be used over and over. There you go. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble the passenger side frame rail bracket to the square end of the Panhard rod support. I'm going to put the bolts in from the front side to the back side. Okay, because once you get this all into the car, you're going to have the gas tank and everything in here. If you ever want to pull these bolts out, you don't want to have them captured when you push them in from the back. So you want to push them in from the front so you can pull them back out again if you're going to drop this out for working on the front of your gas tank or exhaust work or whatever you're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and snug these up, but I'm not going to worry about torquing them just yet, just simply because once it's all on the car, it'll be easier for me to get my wrench on. You know, one person kind of doing a job at once. If it's welded up in place, I can definitely get a torque on it. But right now, I'm definitely going to put a snug on it with an end wrench and a ratchet, but don't really worry about torquing it just yet. You got to be careful when you got guns like this, because just the littlest amount of torque, I mean, you think it's like 5 pounds, but with these guns, it ends up, it can get to 100 foot-pounds really quick. Even with short wrenches, it's just massive amounts of strength. So if you're a big guy like myself, be careful not to over torque it. All right, there we go. So it's not flopping around. One of the things to know is when we measure this, when we're gonna put this on the car, this bracket is not parallel to the ground. The frame rails are actually going from the back of the car up towards the front, and they're also tapering in. So they're going up and in. So this frame rail bracket, when it sits flat against the frame rail, this should actually be perpendicular to the ground, and this should be going uphill and in. So what we'll do is we'll put an angle finder here on the back face, on the outside face, and the front face. Make sure we don't have it, you know, too far like this or too far like that, or like this and like that. But even if you're totally not paying attention and you just made this flat, it's going to be pretty close. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to safely jack up the car. I like jacks and jack stands. Some guys like lifts. It's your own flavor. So I'm going to put 2 jack stands underneath the torque boxes just in front of the leaf springs, and I jacked it up by the differential with the jack, and I want to pop the rear wheels off. I like to roll the wheels under the car, so in case for some reason the jack or something decides to slip, I got a little safety so it doesn't fall on my legs or something as I'm working on it. My dad taught me that one. Hey, I'm Mike Meyer, and I'm going to continue on the video. This is day 2 of working on installing this Panhard rod kit. It's a little colder today, so you'll notice I got a beanie and a little different outfit, but we're still trudging ahead on this job. One thing that I wanted to tell you guys, when you start your Panhard rod kit, your install, you want to make sure that you jack the car up. And one of the things that, well, obviously you need the car in the air, but you can use a lift or however you feel like getting the car elevated, but you gotta have the car level. We keep the car level so then we can align the Panhard rod and make sure it's square to the ground. So I jacked the car up all 4 corners, and then I turned around and I put the tires back under the car just for safety, so if a jack slips or something, we're not pinched. Now that we've got our Panhard rod rough assembled, we've got the 7/16 bolt in and the 2 5/16 bolts in. They're not torqued yet. I'm gonna go through, and I could have done this earlier, but I didn't think about it. I'm gonna sand down these brackets and prepare them for welding. Okay, so what you can see is I sanded the outer edge, I sanded the bottom edge, and my personal preference is I didn't touch the inside because I generally don't weld the inside edge of the frame rail. because it's a real bugger to cut off later on if for some reason you wanted to pull this back off of your car. So I'll generally weld the bottom and the outside edges and call it good. It's plenty strong that way. So you can see I got it sanded on the bottom, the face, the edges, and I sanded a little bit on the inside just so that paint doesn't pull into my weld. Okay, so what we have now is I just laid under the car. I pushed this up onto the frame rails. And by the way, I did pull the tailpipe off that was already here. So I did get the tailpipe section out of the car so I can freely install this and check it out. Once I got this up onto the frame rails, I'm gonna bump this around. And the way I'm holding this is I just put a jack under the lower portion of the chassis bracket. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure. There's a piece of tin in here. There's a piece of tin here that goes in front of the gas tank just behind the fuel line. I want this face, the back face of the Panhard bar bracket, to be 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches away. So I'm going to bump this forward a little bit here. Let's see here. There you go, 1.5 inches, that's good. I can even bump it back a little bit, and that'll be a good starting point for us. And I'm gonna mark this on the frame rail, and I'm gonna pull the Panhard rod back off, and I'm gonna sand it off. But I'm also gonna go to the other side and make sure it's 1.5 inches off of this bracket. So 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches off this frame rail flange should be the back face of both sides. Okay, so we're on the passenger side here. I'm gonna measure again. I'm going to stick my tape measure up on the inside to this frame rail bracket here, or to this plate. I know you can't see because my head's in the way.
It's true.
And then I'm going to sit here, hang on. I'm going to have to come in from the other side. Right about there. And we don't have to be laser focused just yet. Let's get it close. I'm going to go ahead and take my pen. I'm going to mark around. And bam, I got this spot marked. Some people measure from bump stop back, but I've found quite a variation in these bump stops. The gas tank flange is generally right on point. So there you go. There you go. I'll pull it out, and then I'm gonna get my grinder and go ahead and clean up them frame rails. So you can see with this car, the reason why we're excited to do the install on this car is the frame rails are so cherry. It's a total survivor. It hasn't been messed with until I got to it. And it really just gives us a great opportunity to make sure any of these parts that we make are accurate, or as accurate as they can be. These cars are actually a lot cleaner and a lot more consistent than we give them credit. So it's really important also to start with a good clean shell. Okay, so I got the frame rail sanded down pretty good. I'm going to put the Panhard rod back in. And I like to, because a lot of times, not all times, but a lot of times I'm in the shop on my own, like a lot of guys are. I like to, use this jack to help me hold it up. So, got a good old floor jack. I'm using the leg master technique. There you go. Thigh master technique, that's what it is. Boom, right there. Just a light little snug on it. Doesn't have to be super tight because we want to be able to move it around and line it. All right, so I got the chassis bracket back on. I'm going to run my tape measure into the flange in front of the gas tank. It goes all the way across the front of the gas tank. I'm going to bump this back. I'm sitting about 1 5/8. I'm going to try and get this thing right at 1 3/8. Okay. Looks like that's about it right there. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure this guy is level like this, or it's perpendicular to the ground. And we're going to make sure it's not leaning one way or the other way. This bracket is, like we spoke earlier, at the angle of the frame rail, so it should be pretty close already. And that's also why we jacked the car up level, is because when you jack it up level, the frame rail is not level. So we want to make sure that this Panhard Rod chassis bracket is square to the ground, or else it just looks funny. It's not like anything's going to fall off if you weld it crooked, but it just looks funny. So there you go. All right, so I got my little, you can use a digital level, you can use a bubble gauge, you can do whatever you want. I just grabbed this because it was the first thing in the toolbox I found. Plus or minus a degree is gonna be fine, because honestly, your car is gonna have a little bit of rake to it, so it's not gonna matter, honestly, if it's within, say, 1 or 2 degrees. So I got this guy here. It looks like it's on the money, 90 degrees right there.
Sweet.
And I have 1 3/8 right there. So I could probably put a tack weld on that right now and just kind of keep it in place, and then I'll go to the other side. And when I tack weld this, I want to make sure I tack it in a place where I can get a cutoff wheel. I don't want to tack it up in some weird obscure place where, if I realize that I mismeasured something, I want to be able to cut it off and do it again. One helpful tip: when you're tacking something, don't have your feet or legs under the tack wheel. Things inevitably will drop on your leg and burn right in the middle of it. Other than that, it's great, no big deal. That was one of my favorite pair of socks. All right. Cool. Nice. So everything's in there nice. I'm going to go ahead and buzz it up. This is a good thing. Okay, now that I got the chassis bracket welded in place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a wire wheel and just clean that surrounding area, because the powder coat will kind of burn back, create a lip, and just clean all that area up. And I'm gonna get it ready just to put a little paint on there, mask it up and paint it. And I'll just continuously put little coats on it as I do other work, thicken it up a bit. So that's the next step for that. Other than that, I'm gonna go and start working on mounting the Panhard bar axle bracket. That's one of the good things about TIG welding, is it's nice and clean, it's sanitary when you're done, and it doesn't take a lot of rework. So taking a little bit of extra time to get the part clean and then to fit it up, it's always well worth it. Hey everybody, okay, the next step to our Panhard Rod kit is going to be the leaf spring plate. We're going to go ahead and take off the passenger side leaf spring plate, and then we're going to mount this up. And what this leaf spring plate has is it has our lateral thrust brackets that keeps the side loading of the leaf spring going through the spring and not through the U-bolts. It's got our Panhard rod pickup. It's got our shock mount. It's got a tow eyelet. And it's got a little sway bar hole here, because our chassis bracket has sway bar, chassis mount sway bar holes. And then, so this would be where our sway bar end link would mount. Our other passenger or driver side leaf spring plates, they come with a sway bar hole as well, and a tow eyelet. But that part doesn't come with the kit. You can order it with it if you'd like to, but this is part of the Panhard Rod kit. So we're gonna put this on right now. Okay, so I got the old leaf spring plate off. I'm gonna go ahead and stick on the new leaf spring plate. It's a little bit of a bugger doing this sometimes, because the shock will want to push out and it doesn't let you really seat the leaf spring plate back in. super cherry and easy, but a little gumption, you can get it no problem. It just takes a little bit of finagling sometimes. Oh, like that. Bolts like to fall, but that's called reality. So this next step is putting the U-bolts through the lease ring plate, putting the shock in. The shock will generally want to push out if you got a high pressure shock, and it kind of makes it where the lease ring plate's crooked. But with massive pythons such as myself, it doesn't have that much. I don't have that much of a problem because I just use pure torque to install the Panhard rod, and you just got to be careful not to bend the brackets with your grip strength. Okay, so before you just go and crank down on it with your old impact gun or whatever pythons you decide to use, make sure that you just snug them all up into place. And you can't really see, but these thrust tabs up inside that take the side loading out of the U-bolts because of the Panhard rod kit, those thrust tabs could and should be a little bit snug on this leaf. So you'll have to draw it in and get it to slip over that leaf, and that's exactly what's intended. But you're also going to want to torque these bolts. Look up the torque specs in our spec sheets. I want to say it's something like 40 pounds for 7/16 and 60 pounds for 1/2 inch. But these bolts are no grade or grade 2 bolts on purpose. They're really soft. So in the event of an accident, if you hit a curb or something, the intention of these U-bolts is to stretch and bend, but not to snap and break. So when you torque these down, snug them down, get them down to the spec for 7/16 or 1/2 inch, and then come back in 25 miles, re-snug them down. They will take a set and they will loosen up a lot of times. So it's a normal thing. Just be on it for the first 25, 50 miles or so. And it's just a safety precaution I've learned over the years to take. Next step is the Panhard rod. This aluminum rod's pretty cool. It has right and left hand threads, and so what that does, actually this one's the left and that one's the right, but what it does, it allows us to extend it and adjust the size of it per the spot without unbolting it, twisting one, putting it back in. And we also have 2 different length bolts. The longer assembly with the larger spacers goes to the driver's side bracket, and the shorter bolt with the narrower spacers goes on the axle bracket. So we're going to put these in next, and we're just keep trucking down the road. All right, so we're going to put our aluminum bar in. Sometimes you'll have to actually leave this loose, depending upon how much droop is in your leaf springs, to be able to get this bar in. So you'll put it into the driver's side, you'll lift it up, and if you notice, it just barely made it, which means it's my day. I'm super excited about that. So sometimes, like I said, you'll have to loosen this up and then put the Panhard bar in. But in this case, I just ran the rod ends all the way in, and it worked pretty good. So then I'm gonna go ahead and just gonna twist, theoretically, just twist this out, get it close, and then I'm gonna start putting the bolts in. So that's it. I like to stick the bolts in from front to back, so any road grime doesn't get up in the threads. It's kind of like just something that helps you down the line when you're working on your car. It's not something that's a have to. All right, so we've got everything pretty close to buttoned up here with respect to the Panhard rod. So now that I got it all welded in place, I'm gonna go ahead and use the fact that it's welded to do a final torque. The 5/16 side is 25 pounds of torque. So for a grade 8 fine thread bolt. There we go, there's that one. There you go, there you go. Cool, now I'm gonna go to the 7/16 side. This guy goes to 75 pounds for a 7/16 fine bolt. You can technically go to 80, but 75 to 80 pounds will be just fine for this. one of the questions you guys have asked a lot over the years is this aluminum rod is going forward in the chassis at droop. Something you got to realize is that's okay. The rear end housing is going to come up, it's going to push back a little bit, but that bracket, that aluminum rod still will be traveling forwards with respect to from this bracket here to the axle bracket. It'll be going forward a little bit. That skew is all right. We did that for different rear end housings. We're trying to fit it between a bunch of things. And little known fact, the 05 through I think 14 Mustangs all had about 1.5 inches of skew too. So it's okay when you see this aluminum rod aiming forwards just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and torque my 7/16 U-bolts to 40 pounds. And the one thing when you're torquing these, you kind of want to pull them evenly. You don't want to just sit there and go on one. There you go, there's that one. All right, so now we got the chassis bracket up in there. I've been touching up with paint. We got the chassis bracket bolts torqued, axle brackets up. The Panhard rod is in place loosely. While it was up in the air, I went ahead and I modified his old exhaust. I just had to change where some of the U-bends were, or where the bends were, but the exhaust is now set. I'm gonna go bolt this on, and then we'll go ahead and put the car down on the ground and do the final setting on the aluminum rod and the setting for that. All right, so now I got the car down on the ground. I got my tools out. I have a level, I have a tape measure, I've got my 15/16 ratchet and end wrench. I'm gonna go down here and get the Panhard bar aluminum rod level and snug it up into place and set it, and we're just about done. Our starting point for the Panhard, or the aluminum Panhard bar, is all the way down on the chassis bracket and level. I always want this thing as low as possible, but level. The axle bracket over here, you'll see that it's not in the lowest position over here. And that's because with different housings, lowering blocks, different ride heights, we have to have this slot and or adjustability to make up for all the variations of housings that are available out there. So it's okay that it's not all the way in the bottom over here and all the way in the bottom over here. That is exactly what it's doing, what it's supposed to be doing. It's giving us adjustability for different variations of housings and whatnot. So I'm gonna go ahead, and what I did here is it's right and left hand thread. So you can just go one way or the other way. But take the jam nuts back a little bit here. And you can adjust it. And you want it to be loose like this, actually. You don't want it to be all bound up and tight. But what I'm gonna do, just to help me, because I'm under the car here on my own, I'm gonna get it about where I want. I'm gonna snug it up just a little bit, just so it holds it in place and it's not flopping around. And then I'm just gonna snug up this side over here. So here we go. All right, now that we've got the Panhard rod kit under the car and we're tightening down all the bolts, and we got the jam nuts tight, we tighten the end bolts down, we got the Panhard rod low and level. This is the time to take that thing out and drive it around. Check it out. You should be able to feel the side responsiveness. We're getting rid of that springy movement that literally the leaf springs will bow left and right. We get rid of that movement there. It should free up the springs up and down, because it lets the springs now move freely up and down without side loading in the spring. So the Panhard rod kit really helps to clean up the back. You should be able to feel that. Once you put about 100 miles on the car, come back, retighten the bolts, just make sure everything's snugged up. You'll notice, I've seen some guys where they let the Panhard bar go and they never come back and recheck it. You'll see the Panhard bar just creep a little crooked. It's not gonna ruin anything. The car ran for 50 some odd years without a Panhard rod kit. This is just a bonus, but just walk it back down, level and low. We'll get this thing back where it needs to be and just snug it back up. It's all good. But the MMI Panhard rod kit is super cool. We're really proud of it. We've been making these for, oh man, I've been making these for over 25 years. This is just our newest version, and it's really great. I hope you guys enjoy it. and just enjoy the product. It's going to be really great. Thanks so much and have a great day.